Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our Zero Trust webinar series hosted by Ingram Micro's Emerging Business Group. My name is Carlene Edge, Marketing Manager here at EBG. Today's webinar will last approximately 45 minutes, and just in terms of general housekeeping, your lines have been muted for the duration of the presentation. If you do have any questions, you can go ahead and type them in the Q&A box on your screen, and we're going to address all questions at the end of the presentation. This is also going to be recorded today, so I will be sharing that recording link with everybody attending through our follow-up email. So now I'll go ahead and hand things off to Jimmy Augustine, Chief Technology Evangelist for Ingram Micro's Emerging Business Group. Jimmy, take it away.
Thank you, Carlene, and thank you, the participants, for joining today. We realize your time is valuable and a precious commodity. As Carlene mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist for the Emerging Business Group. In 2022, we made a conscious decision to pivot to solutions that solve pervasive market needs. And Zero Trust fits the mold perfectly. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to my partner in crime, Jerry Diedrichs, to introduce himself and tell you a little bit more about what we're going to cover today.
Hey, thanks, Jimmy. And I want to thank everybody for participating with us today. We do realize time is precious, so we'll try to make the most of it. I'll try to keep this 90-slide presentation to, no, I'm just kidding. I have about 10 slides, but we'll try and keep this crisp and hopefully informative for the audience today. And again, Jerry Diedrichs, I am the cybersecurity technology consultant with Ingram, and I've been in the industry about 15 years, but my focus here at Ingram is Zero Trust as a specialty. And we're finding that there's a lot of ambiguity associated with this. And so what we want to do is we want to try and clear the air a little bit and give our clients some clarity. So that's what we're going to be up to today. Jimmy? Anything else you want to cover?
You know, Jerry, I think you covered the key points for the point at this juncture. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide, if you don't mind.
Okay, you bet.
I want to thank all of our vendor partners because our vendor partners are what's making this webinar series possible. And we have 5 great vendor partners. And you're going to hear later at the end of the presentation how you can find out more information about each of these respective vendor partners. Jerry, back to you, my friend.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy. And no, folks, that today is to talk about go-to-market, talk about the financials. We will have none of the partners are present today. Okay, so I've got a quick agenda here I'd like to just put up, and this is essentially where we're going to try and cover. What we want to do is talk about what is this thing, Zero Trust. Let's get everybody on the same page. Talk about how we got where we are and what we're trying to do to solve these problems. Why this is important. You have issues of risk, and then of course you have financial considerations. And then we're going to go through who the players are that we've partnered with, predominantly those folks that are sponsoring this seminar series, and then we'll go over the next steps in the series. So here's it looks like I got a question from Jimmy.
Yeah, Jerry, you know, one of the questions that we commonly get from customers is Zero Trust a product that I can buy?
Well, that's a great question, and I think the next slide will cover that. And what, you know, before we get too deep into that, you know, I just want everybody to be aware it's an overused term in cybersecurity today. Everybody will tell you that they have Zero Trust, and what we're here to do is kind of show you how they might contribute to Zero Trust, but the Zero Trust is not necessarily a single product. So let's get into that a little bit in more depth to try and answer that question. Essentially, you know, what we've got here is a standard, and the standard was put forward by NIST. It was started back about another 10 years before this by Google and Forrester. But really where we are today is that this is paraphrasing the Zero Trust explanation in the standard. It's an operational philosophy, and it's combining least privileged software and hardware with policy and process. And what this is doing is that it is allowing access by users to the resources that they need when they need them. But it's going to be based on context, who they are, where they are, their machine state, are they patched? Do they have the right antivirus tools running on it, anti-malware, whatnot? So there's a lot of qualification associated with allowing access, and then they're only going to be allowed access to what they need when they need it, and then access will be shut down when they don't need it. And that's the zero trust methodology. This is not nimble. And that's the key, is that the balance now is that we have to find a balance between being nimble and agile and being safe and secure. So that's usually where the friction occurs in zero trust. For those interested, here's the standard number 800-207. You can look it up. And if you have trouble reading, by golly, this will help you get to sleep at night. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the problem. How did we get here? What's going on? And really, before the internet became, a commerce vehicle, it was an educational vehicle, or research and development between, think tanks and scientists. But with the commerce came crime. When you got money, you got people that are trying to steal some of that money. So the other problem that we've experienced and we've seen is an issue of complexity. A lot of networks out there that have been cobbled together over years by different people that have retired, passed away, moved on to other jobs, and not left tracks behind. You have a lot of networks out there with a lot of risk because you don't know what's installed where. And so clearly audits are required to really lock all that down. The other key factor, and this is really the most important one to me, is the interface between the keyboard and the chair, which is technically known as the human factor. And this is where the gray area of cyber comes to play. You can have firewalls, and you can have intrusion prevention equipment, and you can have all sorts of gear that is a 1 or a 0. It's either going to allow something or it's not going to allow something. But the problem is that the human being is the one that sits in the middle and makes a decision whether a link that's in their email is safe or not. And so they click it, and it causes problems. So the human factor is a key issue, and that's where education comes to play. The other problem that we have in this space is a lack of attribution. You no longer have the good guys and the bad guys. You don't have people wearing uniforms. You don't have geographical boundaries between two countries. These people are all over the world, and they're collaborating with one another to create a cybercrime environment that is making them millions of dollars. So we don't know who they are. There's little consequence if you can't find the people that are actually doing the bad things. Finally, we've got the perimeter issue. Perimeter defenses are no longer effective like they used to be. We used to assume that if you were inside the castle, you got across the moat and over the drawbridge and through the gate, that you were allowed to be there. And we can't assume that any longer. That's really what the risk is here, is an implied risk. So now what we have to do is we have to imply no trust and give people trust as they need it. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers. And if we were all in a big banquet room and I was doing this live, I'd be throwing Snicker bars to people who could guess what these numbers mean. But since we're not there, I'll just go ahead and give you the answers. In over a year's time between 2020 and 2021, we had a 68% increase in data breaches. 1,862 of those were reported, but know that only about 10 to 12% are reported. So there's quite a number of breaches that are unknown to the statisticians. So this number is probably greatly increased. 22% of all these attacks are involving ransomware. And you'll see why that's an interesting number in a second. We've had a 105% increase between 2020 and 2021 in ransomware events. And that has cost the US $21 billion in 1 year in 2020. So this is a significant issue. And so why is this important? Well, of course, here's the kicker for me, anyway, is that this thing is going to cost the world $10.5 trillion a year by 2025. And this isn't just me talking, by the way. This is all vetted. And if this is measured as an economy, as a country's economy, it would be third behind the US and China. And if you guys want to keep me honest, feel free to look up the facts because I got them footnoted. Okay, so let's talk about the financial considerations. So what are the risks? So we talked a little bit about that. You get a risk in 2021, $6 trillion. And loss of intellectual property is a big issue here in the States, because you got folks calling around looking for fighter jet plans and that type of thing. And that's estimated to cost up to $600 billion with a B a year. Lawsuits are becoming more prevalent, and so now your clients are out there worried that they're going to get in trouble, and the average cost of a lawsuit defense is about $750,000, and the average settlement right now is at about $2 million. So what's the upside? This is really what we want to get to now, is understand what it is that we can be doing to help the businesses that we work with avoid that risk, and to help you guys, who are our partners, grow and improve. So the financial considerations that we want to bring to bear here a little bit. Again, Snicker bars, so there's folks that are actually able to guess what these numbers represent. Virtual Snicker bars don't taste very good, so we'll just go through this. $58.65 billion is what the revenue projection in the US is for 2022. It's a big pie. We have projected revenue of IT services in 2022 of $24 billion. We have an average compounded average growth rate of 7.4% over the next 4 years or so. And then the market is looking to grow by $78 billion overall by 2026. And then the average cost per employee of spend in this year, 2022, is estimated to be about $350. But in global comparison, most of this revenue will be generated right here in the US. And that's that $58 billion number. Again, significant. I want to talk a little bit about the statistics that I've put forward here. I've got a chart here that is showing a cost breakdown of that $350 spent, and this is from Statista. And you'll notice that hardware is really falling way behind in this spend, right behind software. But the highest number of this breakdown is IT services. And the reason for this is that people can't staff, they can't train, they cannot keep their people current, because once they get people trained up, they leave and go somewhere else. And so people are having a hard time getting off the dead center and getting a solid cybersecurity posture going, which is a huge opportunity in our space. Oh, Jimmy, here you are again.
Yeah, I'm such a nag. I apologize, Jerry.
That's all good.
With all the focus as of late on zero trust, are you saying that previous security standards have not been effective?
It's another great question. And, honestly, really what we're doing here is we're using statistics, and based on the trends that we've just discussed, the stats are showing that, with all of the point products that have been deployed over the years, and there's varying numbers about how many products people have in their bags in their businesses, but suffice it to say, they've spent billions of dollars overall in the industry in trying to stop bad things from happening, but they simply haven't been effective, as is meted out by these ransomware numbers, for instance. So it's clear that we haven't been as effective as we really need to be. And so that's why we need something new and different that's practiced, observed, and constantly adjusted to get these outcomes to improve. So the previous security standards, yes, by themselves, they've been effective, but they haven't been complete. And that's probably the best way of answering that question. So let's talk about how we can get to complete. That's really a great segue. I want to talk a little bit about what Ingram has defined as a good strategy. And this isn't, we're not writing the standard, but this is based on our experience, what we feel is a good combination of technologies that help a client develop a strong cybersecurity posture. The idea being that each of these strings is okay, but when you weave these strings together, what you're doing with that is you're creating a strong cord. And we really want to emphasize that this is not a big bang thing. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's an overtime strategy, but you got to start somewhere. And what we want to do is we want to encourage our reseller partners to understand that we have products that we can bring to bear to enable these technologies to help your clients develop a strong posture. And I'll just talk through this quickly, if I may. Software-defined perimeters. This is very much like microsegmentation. What we're doing is we're reducing the attack surface by only allowing a user to access resources that they need when they need it, which is right in line with the discussion point earlier about what zero trust is, kind of paraphrased. Encryption is another tool that is really overlooked, and a lot of people fear this, and we need to dispel that a little bit, because if you can't read the data, it's useless to steal the data. And that is really key here. So what we want to do is we want to encourage the use of encryption wherever possible. Privileged access management, identity access management, obviously this is kind of what people are doing right now. This is the trend of the moment, and it's a good one. Privileged access management is that practice where you're safeguarding elevated credentials, and you're not allowing those credentials to be reused. Can't write them down on a sticky note. It's just been a past practice. Hey, what's that SA password for this SQL server? Those days are gone when you use a good PAM platform, because it's going to change that credential with every use. So you're rolling those credentials, and you're checking those credentials out so you know who it was that actually used the credentials and when they used them. So now you have an audit trail. So if you have a problem, you can go back in time and try to figure out what happened. And then, of course, identity access management speaks for itself. We need to know who you are, and you are who you say you are, and you got something that you know, something that you have, and those are really just critical. It's almost table stakes anymore in business. Talk a little bit about this data packet payload visibility, which is quite a mouthful. But what we're talking about here is cracking open 443 packets as they come in the door, HTTPS traffic. It is now encrypted with TLS almost predominantly, used to be SSL. But you have to have a mechanism to be able to look inside that payload before it gets in your enterprise. Because what you want to do is you want to stop the threat before it actually hits the wire. Now, if you can't, then you have defense in depth, and now you have other tools that'll start looking things over, endpoint tools and whatnot. But you really want to try and arrest that problem before it actually gets in the enterprise. So we're advocating having tools that'll allow you to do that. And then the last two items here are really kind of let's verify and validate. Did we do the right thing? Do we need to make adjustments? And that's where we talk about unusual user device behaviors. Is that guy or gal, they come to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Now they're in on Saturdays or Sundays at 2 in the morning and doing things that they don't normally do. And that really warrants somebody to stop and take a look and figure out what's going on. And then the same thing kind of holds true here for east-west traffic in your data centers. You want to be sure that the SQL server that's been talking to that Exchange server for years and years, he starts going off and looking at engineering data stores. Maybe something's going on and warrants investigation, which really loops back around to making sure that your strategies on top are actually effective. So what we do with that is we apply product. And you'll see that most of these products are folks that we're going to highlight through this seminar, this webinar series, but talk a little bit about them and just whet your appetites a bit. I'm not going to go into any kind of a deep dive, but we will have these vendor partners come and present in subsequent sessions here to give you a deeper dive into what they do. But AppGate and OpSWAT, they actually have kind of written the book on software-defined perimeters. Now, there are others out there, but this is all AppGate does, by the way. Very strong reduction of the attack surface technology. Autocomma provides encryption, and they do it in a unique way because they use what we call key shards. So they're taking that encryption key, and rather than storing it in a server to be checked out, they're actually breaking it into multiple elements. And you can have that one element on an iPhone, one element on a PC, a laptop, what have you, but without getting the two elements together, kind of like the keys for the nuclear football, you can't open the file. And it's file and folder level encryption, very effective. We talked about privilege access management. Beyond Trust and iBoss are vendors of choice that we recommend. There are many others, but these are folks that we've been partnering with on this go-to-market strategy. Data packet payload visibility. If you need a standalone tool to do that, F5 will do that. FortiGate has product. NetScout has product. Know that iBoss will do that for you natively. ForcePoint as well. There's other folks that do that as a part of their suite of products. And then we talk about this unusual device behaviors, and force points insider threat tool is awesome for that. Their dynamic data protection tools will do that as well. And then over here you've got in your east-west traffic, CrowdStrike, Trellix, OpSWAT again, Palo Alto's Cortex. These are all tools that'll monitor your server traffic and tell you when you have anomalies. So with that, and I'm prattling on, and I just want to be sure that I'm being effective here, but here's a table view of these vendors, these partners and what they do. They are all part of our Ingram Micro Emerging Business Group team. And they're actually they're all point products that do what they do very, very well. And you don't need all of them to get started. You need to find a use case that warrants one of them and then start growing that strategy from there. So, oh, Jimmy, there you are again.
Yeah, I promise this is my last question for you, Jerry.
It looks just like you, by the way.
Actually, this character has more hair than I do, so I'm a little envious and jealous.
Got it.
But thank you for pointing that out. So the question is, does Ingram Micro have professional services like an assessment I can use to help me start selling?
Yeah, start selling Zero Trust. We do. We actually have some strategies that leverage other partners. First of all, we have an internal team of consultants that can provide risk analysis, such as pen testing and whatnot, do some risk analysis directly. Now, it's not product oriented, it's a service. For those use cases that are consultative or educational, we don't necessarily consult, but at that level, like education or, do write-ups and reviews, but we have partners that do. And we have a large network of partners that we can get engaged to fulfill those requirements. All you have to do is ask your team here at Ingram, and we can get that going. Okay, so that is pretty much it for my piece of this this presentation. Jimmy?
Yeah, I want to reiterate that we thank you for your participation, but we want to start to take your questions. I'm sure that Jerry's content has spurred some questions from the audience. So as Carlene mentioned, use the chat facility to enter in any questions that you might have for Jerry or myself. And I'm hoping that you have questions for Jerry.
I want all the questions to go to Jimmy. Come on.
Again, if you have any questions, please use the chat facility. If there are, Carlene, are there any questions coming in?
No, I haven't seen any yet, but that might mean you guys just did your jobs right. You've answered everything.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, if you do have questions at a later point in time, below is our contact information. Also, if you have any interest in talking with us, please do reach out. We'd love to talk with you. Next slide, Jerry.
You bet. Yeah, so the next step in this thing is talk about next session. So Jimmy, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. This is the first of 4 webinars in our Zero Trust webinar series. We're going to go into more depth on each of our vendor sponsors during the next 3 sessions. You can also register for each of the sessions using the original invite for this webinar. The next one is going to be on privileged product in June. Next slide, Jerry. Then the following session is going to be on encryption and secure access service edge, and that will take place in July. And then our last session will be in August, and the focus will be on operational technology and industrial control systems. So we hope that you can register for our future webinar series, and we encourage you to do so. I want to really thank you again for your time and your attention for today's webcast and your participation in today's webcast. We really appreciate it, and on behalf of Jerry and Carlene and the rest of Ingram Micro, I thank you for your participation. in your business. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jerry. And
bet.
just again, I'm going to send a follow-up email with the recording of this, and I'll also put all of the registration links for the upcoming series as well. So be on the lookout for that. And this concludes our webinar for today. So thank you so much, everybody. We'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.